to join us. Can I welcome all members and officers to this meeting of Cabinet Committee Corporate Parenting, CCCP, which has been convened as a hybrid meeting. This meeting is being recorded and will be available via the Council's website to be viewed as soon as possible following this meeting. The meeting agenda pack can also be viewed on the Council's website. Everyone participating in the meeting will be attending either in the Council chamber or from remote locations. Members attending remotely must keep their cameras on for the duration of the meeting. However, all attendees should keep their microphones off until they are invited to speak. Please could officers introduce themselves when they are invited to speak. Members and officers can indicate they want to speak by pressing the hands up icon. I will now proceed to the agenda business. Apologies for absence. I've received apologies for absence from the leader, Councillor John Spanswick. He's down at the River Clean and he hasn't got any power now this morning on his laptop. So our apologies from him. Councillor Jonathan Pratt, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I need to leave this meeting at 11:30 for other business if we're still here.
Thank you very much for letting us know. Councillor Farr, please.
Same with me, Chair. I have to leave at the latest 11:45 for another meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Farr. Councillor Betso, please.
Morning, Chair. I have to leave by 12, but looking at it with everyone else going earlier, hopefully we'll be done by then. So thank you.
Well, let's hope so. At least everybody can input into the business. If we could keep our questions succinct, we might manage to do just that. Thank you very much. So any declarations of any interest by members attending this morning, please? No, moving swiftly on. Approval of the minutes from the 10th of January 2025. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please?
I'll move, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Evans, can I have a seconder, please?
A second, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Farr. So, first item on the agenda this morning is the overview of health services provided to care experienced children and young people report. I'm going to hand over to... Claire? Oh, yeah, sorry. Take my glasses off, I can actually see people. That would be helpful. Claire O'Keefe. Claire, do you want to introduce yourself, please, when you come in? Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Claire O'Keefe. I'm Head of Safeguarding for Cwmtaf Morgannwg Health Board. And I've got my colleague, Nicola Jones, who's Senior Nurse for Safeguarding and Looked After Children.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Do you want to go through your report that you're presenting to committee this morning, please? Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. So we pulled together a report based on, I guess, as many services we've been able to include where our care experienced children have access to those services. So we've given a bit of a broad overview, like I said, by those services accessed by our care experienced children, and essentially try to align it with how the Health Board supports the 6 key priorities that have been laid out in the Bridgend Corporate Parenting Board terms of reference. The Health Board actually signed up to the Corporate Parenting Pledge in 2024. As a Health Board, we're committed to ensuring that children, young people and those who care for them have access to appropriate health care and advice needs support with their physical, mental and overall well-being. Nicola and I actually oversee the Looked After Children's team, or the care experience team, which consists of around 5 nurses who undertake health assessments and coordinate the care for some of our care experienced children, and there's a team leader then within that team. So in respect of having a voice, the Health Board actually launched a children's charter 2 years back based on children's rights, and that was developed together with young people. There's been a launch of a national Civica survey on the 1st of April. So that is to capture feedback from care experienced children, young people and their carers to be able to influence and drive improvements within our health services. There's also questionnaires in circulation in the past year for children who access child protection medicals, which often some of our care, sorry, we've got a problem with the camera, some of our care experienced children have accessed, and obviously looking within our CAMS how children and young people shape that service as well. There's a number of different initiatives going on there. So we've included into the report some of the colleagues to see. In terms of good health and well-being, like I said, we provide a dedicated health team to be able to undertake health assessments. Our health visiting teams undertake the health assessments on a 6-monthly basis for our under 5, so looking at our statutory and legislative assessments, making sure that they're done in a timely fashion, and some of those under 5s are also seen by medical practitioners as their first initial. The health team attend the monthly complex placement panels, meeting across the 3 local authorities, and that obviously includes our Bridgend County Borough Council, to provide any additional health related information that may support placement, and also support with those on the edge of care as well. Our children under 5 are also in receipt of the Healthy Child Wales programme, which is standard across all health visiting services. Something else that's been worked on this year is around the voice of the toddler and infant. So that piece of work has been embedded into the report. That's been led by colleagues within our health visiting and children and young people directorate. And again, some guidance has been developed for staff who are working with care experienced children about trying to make a more streamlined approach when they're coming in for surgery, so around the consent process. So that's been done in collaboration with the local authority colleagues and with the Cwm Taf Morgannwg Safeguarding Board, and has just been approved this year. Our neurodevelopmental service have provided an overview of how they're trying to tackle their waiting lists. Colleagues might be aware that the waiting lists have been up to 18 months to 2 years for some children accessing neurodevelopmental services. They've been in receipt of some Welsh Government funding and are looking and piloting some different initiatives to try and bring those waiting lists down, and they are detailed within that report. And then in terms of supporting our children and young people in living independently and being able to transition into adulthood, there's a large piece of work being led by our medical director around transition and how we support children and young people, or support young people into adulthood, and with that handover of care from children and young people services into our adult services, and making them a much easier and smoother transition, and making sure they're supported through that. We're also working with our I think it's the training and learning department, isn't it, around what opportunities we can offer young people in terms of apprenticeships and work experience. So we actually supported a young care experienced young lady. She was, I think, 15 on her work experience. We were able to support her in, she had an interest in radiology, so be able to spend some time with radiology, spend some time in our children and young people department with speech and language therapists, and get an overview of what the health board can offer in terms of employment opportunities. And then longer term, you know, in line with wellbeing of future generations, we're consistently looking at how, I guess, we improve our data, how we capture where our care experienced children are accessing, so how many, for example, would access therapies. We start to be able to pull some data around that, how long they're on waiting lists for, and really getting a better understanding, I suppose, around how we can improve their access to services. And in general, that's for a wider population of children and people, but obviously will include our care experienced. And we developed some leaflets around for, again, from our care experienced team that we can give out when they're transitioning, going back to that, to make sure that they have access to all their birth details and signposted to the relevant services. We've also developed some mental health leaflets as well, that signpost them to various apps and various mental health services they can access 24 hours a day. I just don't think there's anything else to pull out in terms, I guess, our biggest part is working in collaboration. So sitting on the 3 corporate parenting boards across the 3 local authorities, and just really trying to pull out best practice and how we can make sure that the health board is actively involved in making improvements for our care experienced children and young people. I suppose just to ask if there's any questions. I appreciate there's a lot to different things to cover off, and I've run through that, but I'm hoping colleagues have a chance to read it.
Thank you very much, Claire. I already know you've got some questions. I have one myself, but first of all, I'll go to Councillor Kaparos, please.
Thank you, Chair. Happy to move the report.
Lovely, thank you.
With regards to the neurodevelopment assessment schemes that you've introduced, there's some really good numbers in there about the number of people coming off the waiting list and the reduction in the waiting times for kids being assessed. I'm wondering if you could tell us what sort of material impact are we seeing on children who are getting assessed quicker? And I don't know whether you could tell us, or maybe it's something I should ask our own officers, what are the long-term service demand impacts on the local authorities at the end of this? And then thirdly, how long will it take for us to start seeing reductions in waiting times for all? I'm assuming as you capture the children earlier, that'll increase capacity. The report alludes to there's some improvement. I'm wondering if you could give us a bit more info on it. Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor, thank you for the question. And unfortunately, so within my role in the Health Board, I'm not the lead for Children and Young People Services. So we've got a head of nursing and a director for children and young people where this particular service sits. I think what I'd be happy to say is I think if I could put those questions to them and respond in writing, if that's okay, just because I don't oversee this service. They've kindly provided us some information for the report, but we would need that head of service to be able to describe the impact and the longer term planning. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
That's okay, and we'd welcome that, those questions being asked answered via email, please, Claire. Thank you, Councillor Kaparos. Councillor Farr, please.
Thank you, Chair. Happy to second the...
You
Sorry?
have muted yourself.
Yeah, I did. Sorry about that. Happy to second the report, and I think Councillor Kaparos stolen my first question. But it is good to see that there is some changes being made to the waiting list for neurodiversity. My question is more on mental health. The report doesn't talk much about CAMHS, and we all know that young people leaving care do have experience of trauma, and there's a great need for mental health and for drugs and alcohol services. So the report doesn't talk about what kind of waiting list, because I'm aware there are very long waiting lists. It's very difficult to get into CAMHS. Is how are we going to address those issues? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Our head of child and adolescent mental health, unfortunately, was on extended period leave. I don't know if he's in the meeting today. He's been invited, so I was hoping that he'd be able to attend to be able to give an overview of the CAMHS service. We don't have significant waits for CAMHS. The waiting list is no longer than 6 weeks for them to be able to access, so single points of contact, to be able to have assessments. So within CAMHS, we've not been informed that we've got any issues with wait lists. It's more on the neurodevelopmental side and learning disability side. But I absolutely agree with you around it's really important, and unfortunately it is absent from the report just because we were unable to access that information in a timely way to bring to the meeting. But I'm aware that so Rob Richards is the lead nurse for CAMHS, so he attends Corporate Parenting Board, and I believe has provided some slides previously around that information and data. So I'd be more than happy to share that following the meeting, get that data set over to you. I know certainly Steve Berry, they just shared there for the purposes of them looking at that. So I'm happy to get that over as a starter point, I think, Councillor, and then if you have any further questions, happy to pose those to our CAMHS colleagues. Sorry, I know we're a bit of an all-rounder today. We're kind of trying to represent everybody in health, which isn't ideal.
Oh, you never know what questions are going to be asked. Thank you very much. We actually have Steve Berry in the room with us this morning. So Steve, could you please send that data set round that we had from CAMHS, please, to all participants in this meeting? Thanks very much. Councillor Jones, please.
Thank you, Chair. And can I thank health colleagues for the report. If I could take colleagues, please, to page 2 of the report, and in particular to paragraph 2.3, which talks about demand. And paragraph 2.3 says the Health Board currently have 1,485 care experienced children residing within its footprint, of which 420 are placed within the locality of Bridgend County Borough Council. When I read that paragraph, I then turn to page 6, and paragraph 5.1 talks about the Health Board's commitment to long-term care and support to care experienced children. But if I go back to that statistic, what does that statistic tell us? Is the trajectory going up, or is it consistent, or is it going down? Because my fear, if that statistic goes up, that is, there is extra demand, then there will be a dilution then, of course, on paragraph 5.1 in relation to your ability to support those children. So could we talk a little bit more perhaps about that statistic? Is it going up? Is it fairly consistent? Or dare I suggest, is it going down? Thank you.
Thanks, Claire. Just before you come in, statistically for Bridgend children, the number is going down. I think the one thing I would highlight is the amount of children that we have external that are not Bridgend residents originally. So before I bring Claire in.
Nicola's going to respond if that's okay, Chair. I think, Jane, you answered it. This is the number of children that are placed within the Bridgend local authority. So overall, what we can see is that the number of children accommodated has gone up, but Bridgend, the number of children being accommodated locally within the Bridgend by BCBC is going down. This is children that are placed outside, and it's going up for a number of reasons. Sometimes it's just one of those things. There are more foster carers that live within the CTM footprint. So you know, it's difficult to say whether it's going to impact on services in the long term. But it's just really for colleagues to be aware that the Health Board accommodate children and place, have a number of children placed within its footprint, and you know that does impact on services.
Thank you very much. I'm going to bring Dave Wright in because I'm assuming that he wants to respond to this as well, please.
Sorry, Chair. Just wanted to come in and respond to, in terms of where Bridgend are at around our care experienced children's population. In March of last year, we were around 397 children within care. As of the 31st of March of this year, we were 333. So that trajectory is reducing in terms of Bridgend, which means obviously there'll be reductions in terms of pressures on Health Board staff. But more importantly for me, it means that obviously children and families are being supported more effectively within their local communities as well. What we know is when children do come into care, there are risks of them being placed outside of county. Health colleagues just referenced that in terms of the number of children placed within Bridgend, and obviously the implications that has then in terms of care planning for children if they are placed further afield from their local communities, that's all. So I guess the picture from a Bridgend perspective is a positive one in that there are less children coming into care, demonstrating they're being supported more effectively within their family homes and within their family networks, which is what we want at the end of the day.
Thanks very much. And just to highlight, that wasn't Steve Berry, that was Dave Wright. He's just using Steve Berry's mic because we have a problem in the chamber for those officers recording the meeting. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for that. I suppose the second part of my question would be, now that the Health Board identifies that there is an increase in the demand, does the Health Board then allocate resources commensurate to meet that demand? So, for example, the consistent approach to support Bridgend will be unaffected.
Claire, you are muted.
Sorry. It's always one, isn't it? We regularly provide updates to our executive board around the demand, particularly around this particular service. I guess where we see the pressures are the ability for our health colleagues to attend the care experience reviews. So in terms of the health assessments, I mean, we are still, I suppose, recovering from a COVID period where staff were redeployed. We're in the process actually developing, one, a business case, but two, about how we redesign the service and how we can use wider workforce, such as our school nursing colleagues, to be able to provide additional support in this space. We've been fortunate enough to have some additional funding where we've been able to bring in some bank and agency staff, and but they've predominantly been used for the purposes of making sure the statutory assessments are completed and making sure we at least identify the health needs of those children and young people. So I think there is a growing need, but I think there's also something we flagged up in the National Steering Group, is there's a growing need for us to really look at what is important for the health board to provide for care experienced children. Appreciate we've got the statutory assessments, but as a colleague mentioned around the trauma-informed work, you know, recognising the vulnerabilities and the mental health needs of those young people, how we use our wider services such as CAMHS, and how we work more collaboratively. So I think that's something we've been doing as well as we can, and identifying those vulnerable young people through good communication and making sure that they get seen in a timely way. That's been working thus far, but obviously we continue looking at how we can improve it.
Thank you, Claire. You can take. Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Bledsoe, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Claire, for the report. It's a really good report, actually. I want to take us to page 10 and the top of page 11, if I can, about the Children's Charter that's been developed. Chair, I'm not going to discuss any details in open session, obviously. However, where this charter isn't being adhered to, Claire, can you please lay down assurances to us that this is not going to be habitual, that instances where this charter is not put into action in reality, how is the health board going to bring that back to actually happening for our care experienced children, please? Thank you.
So we haven't had anything reported to us to say it's not. I guess what we haven't had is a robust assurance process. So we performed some regular audits around quality, I guess, of our assessments and quality of the work that we're involved with. We're really hoping that actually these Civica questionnaires, and I think as a national perspective, what they recognised is we're not getting the voice of young people to be able to confirm that we're meeting what we said we're going to meet. So, you know, they put the Children's Charter in place. I'm named Dr. Led on that piece of work. I guess what we don't have is that feedback to let us know either way whether we're meeting that or not. And that's, I guess, for us as working within the care experience team, or, you know, from that perspective, the national piece of work, we're really hoping that feedback will give us the evidence we need to show that we are actually delivering that charter and we are meeting those requirements. But this far, nobody's come to us to say we haven't. But like I said, without that feedback opportunity, there probably isn't a really robust way of getting their voice across. So in that respect, I think that's probably somewhere where I don't want to use the word failed, but up to this point, not being able to evidence that we've effectively implemented it. Does that make sense? Is that okay? I've waffled a bit with it.
No, you haven't waffled. It does make sense. Chair, may I come back, please, with your permission?
Yep.
Thank you. That's really concerning, actually, to hear that actually one of the things that you have said in the charter is that you're going to listen to the voice of the child, and you're telling us that you don't have a mechanism to put that in place. That's really, really concerning, because how on earth can you say that this charter is going to listen to the voice of the child and then not even have the mechanism in place? That's a huge failing to even launch that charter.
I probably should have been clear about that. When I say we don't have a mechanism, I mean in the care experience team. So children, young people care group do. So they've had questionnaires for some time in place for children, young people accessing their services. What I mean is from our looked after children's team in respect to the statutory assessments and how they work with our team, which is what Nick and I oversee. I don't oversee children, young people, but I'm aware that they've had feedback and questionnaires in place for a number of years. I just couldn't give you detail on that because, again, it's not my care group. It's not somewhere where I work.
Again, But again, that's a failing of two departments not talking to each other. So that is still a failing.
Councillor Bledsoe, can I bring Claire in because she has some information that might be pertinent to your question in the first place? Thanks.
Cheers.
We definitely have a problem with microphones in the chamber this morning. I'm Claire Marchant, Corporate Director of Social Services and Wellbeing, not Councillor Jane Gebby. So I just wanted to stress the importance of the Looked After Child review, because in that review, all aspects of a childcare plan will be considered, including those health aspects. So I think what Claire was emphasising earlier in terms of the importance of health colleagues being able to attend that review if at all possible. We do encourage children where they're able and where they're of an age to attend their own reviews, but even if they're not able to attend, certainly their social worker would be feeding back their experience, in the IRO, the independent reviewing officer, who's got a statutorily independent role of all services, including the social worker, should be feeding back that child's experience. So that's a really important feedback loop that exists for all aspects of a child's care plan, including the health aspects.
Thank you, Claire. And that's us that's putting that feedback in place, though, not the health board, isn't it?
Legislatively, we have to, though, Councillor Bledsoe. So it would be up to us. It's about sharing that data more effectively. And we still haven't got all the systems in place to do so. What I would say to you is you know as chair of SOC2 about the Connecting Care agenda. Part of that agenda is around how we share data more efficiently and more collaboratively, because we do need to work from an integrated space, which is why I've been banging on so much about the Connecting Care agenda, because all that information will be flagged. It's already on WICIS and a social services system, but that doesn't translate elsewhere because systems don't talk to each other in Wales.
No, and it's concerning, Jane, pardon me, Chair, Councillor Gebby, because that's where failings happen, and they can happen quite quickly, and they can happen with quite a severity for the person or the child involved. And that's my concern as a corporate parent.
No.
Yeah. Just to come back in again, just around the independent reviewing officers and the Looked After Child review. So health colleagues will be invited to that. It's a statutory process which has to be led by the local authority. But I guess health participation in that process, and then hearing directly from the IRO and sometimes from the child themselves about their experience is really key to that feedback loop to the health board about all aspects of a child's health plan, in addition to those things which individual services within the health board will put in place. I would guess, and Steve, you'll hear from Steve later, that there's always an open opportunity if the young people want it for health colleagues to attend the Bridgend Youth Voice Forum as well, although accepting, as you'll see in the later paper, that doesn't cover all our care experienced children and young people. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much for the question. I think it's really important that we get to the bottom of some of this stuff. I have a question for you, Claire, please. It's really quite simple, and I think it might be useful in future reports to put some of this information in reports. I also want to pay tribute to health colleagues on the call. Thank you very much. This is the first time that we have had a specifically focused child health board paper come into this committee. So my thanks to you. You've referenced at 3.5 on page 11 the timeframe of assessments outlined in the legislation. Are the timeframes met, please?
We currently have we do have a backlog at the moment. Our initial assessments are met, so it's kind of a partial answer. So our initial assessments, I'm reasonably confident they're met within the time frame. Our under fives as well, which are administered by our health visiting service, we don't appear to have a problem. We do have an issue sometimes with our initial assessments with our under fives with our paediatricians, and that can be a number of things, and I can't emphasize enough, getting consent is an issue for us sometimes, and I do raise it at a number of meetings. It can impact on when we can offer those first appointments, and our over fives, we are running at a backlog. I think Claire alluded to the team was redeployed. and we had a number of issues around sickness, but we are working towards getting that backlog reduced. And that's for all care experience children, because we see them in date order. We will bring forward children that are have a priority. So for a priority would be complex health needs, poor mental health, frequent attendance at A&Es, and also at the request of social workers. So and we do now have to report our data to Welsh Government. I think all health boards are being requested to provide data to Public Health Wales. So, you know, in terms of and the other issue we've done as well is brought on. I think you alluded to the issues around systems. We have been using a slightly older database. We've moved across now, so we're now able to see a much more dynamic picture. That has saved us time from going through lots and lots of records. So what I would say is we are making the timeframes on plan.
Oh, sorry, we lost the last bit of that contribution, Claire. I think the only other, I think the only other additional question I would ask then is, you've said that you have a backlog. What does that backlog actually look like? Because a backlog could be 1, but it could also be 100.
I don't have I can get the Bridgend figures for you. I look at the service as a whole, really. So I can email the backlog to you.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
That would be really, really helpful. I've already expressed my thanks to you, my thanks from all my colleagues in the chamber as well today. Please don't feel that you have to stay for the rest of this meeting, because there are a significant number of agenda items on there today. But thank you very much for your contribution this morning. It's been greatly received.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, everyone.
Right then, moving swiftly on to agenda item number 5, Foster Wales Bridgend update. I'm assuming that Dan, you're going to introduce it, please. And can you make sure that you introduce yourself for the recording, please? Thank you.
Again. Thank you, Chair. I'm Dan Bolton. I'm the Group Manager for Provider Services, overseeing our internal foster service and our internal residential provision also. I'm going to take you through an overview of the Foster Wales Bridgend report. I'll focus on the local picture, while my colleague Amy McArdle from Foster Wales will cover national and regional developments. So just to take you through this, so as part of the programme for government 2022 to 27, you'll maybe be aware that Welsh Government is committed to phasing out profit in children's residential services and foster care. The Health and Social Care Act, passed on March 2025, is set firm deadlines. Starting from 2026, no new private providers can register as profitable providers in Wales. In April 2027, existing profitable providers can't add any additional beds in Wales, and by 2030, no new placements or private providers can operate in Wales. So this requires us to invest now in our local sufficiency, strengthen our carer base, and ensure that children have high quality placements within their own communities. We also face a well-documented national shortage of foster carers. Locally, we've seen a net loss of carers over the last 3 years, particularly those with the skills to support children with complex needs. Our vision remains clear. Foster carers are professionals and should be supported and included as equal partners. I'll hand you over to Amy McArdle now from Foster Wales, who'll take you through the national regional overview.
Thank you, Dan. Hi, I'm Amy McArdle. I'm your Regional Development Manager for Cumdaf Maganog. So I work within the network of Foster Wales, where there's 6 regional development managers, ensuring that we are learning from each other across fostering services. We're collaborating where it's effective to collaborate, and also maximising potential to do projects nationally. So I've touched upon in the report a few things that we've achieved over the last year since I attended this board. Some of the developments are around exactly what Dan's just said in terms of improving our recruitment, our presence within what is seen as a market currently, and being commercially savvy in terms of making sure that we're in the right place where we need to be in the Eliminate Profit agenda, but also some developments in-house which will go on to support our children. So one of the things I touched upon within the report is our Big Welcome app, which has successfully been launched now in Bridgend, as well as every other local authority across Wales. It's something that the Children's Advisory Board took to Welsh Government, and we're really passionate about ensuring that all children were to receive information on their foster carers before being taken to their front door. So we're now in a position in Bridgend where all of our local authority foster carers have an online profile, and I've been meeting with children's teams about how in practice we ensure that all children who are placed in-house receive the opportunity to read that profile, receive the opportunity to ask questions on their foster carers before they're taken to that front door. We've received some feedback of the smaller number of profiles we've used, that it's been really reassuring to young people. It's given them real confidence to ask questions when they first have that welcome with foster carers. So we're hoping now this becomes part of practice and we can roll this out with our new carers coming through the front door. Something that's really keen and on our agenda at the moment is working regionally to improve our sufficiency in different types of care. So I touched on the report around the development of a parent and child scheme. This is where children, where the courts have decided that actually we want to give an opportunity to mothers or fathers to support their baby but need additional support to do that, and that could be within the provision of a foster home. So we are heavily reliant across Wales on our independent services for that provision, and given the timescales now in place by Welsh Government, we need to look at how we ensure that we've got in-house provision to do that. Something we decided actually would be more effective to do regionally. It would give us better power to recruit that specific scheme for the types of carers we need for parent and child, but also enable us to support our carers of a smaller cohort across the region, and looking to do some of that support nationally as well. Part of that is around support care, so making sure that we have the ability to recruit part-time carers. So this could be to help stability within our other foster families, help stability with families on the edge of care, but also stability of families who have children with disabilities. So we'll be looking to recruit people who have potentially only can provide part-term care for that. And then we're in the initial discussion development around what we may call step down from residential. So ensuring we've got highly skilled people and we're able to recruit by having a right package of support and financial incentives, people with the right skills and experience to come in and have more time commitment for our children with complex needs, and potentially are in residential where they could be supported in the right foster home. Some of the other elements in the report I touch upon is around the national campaigns over the last year. One of them most predominantly is around eliminating profit and why, and highlighting some of the carers that have actually already moved over from a private sector and how positive they now see the lights of the local authority and how we can capitalise on that. Some work is being done internally. I'm meeting with children's teams around how we make sure our right messaging when we are working with foster carers in the independent sector, they really understand the Eliminate agenda and how that works in terms of supporting the child through that transition. We've launched our Foster Wales Partner Scheme. So one of the points I wanted to raise today is how we can use your networks in ensuring that we've got businesses across Bridgend coming on board as Foster Wales partners. This is a scheme which enables them to support us within recruitment and spreading the word across their employee networks, but also their public presences, but also them having a better understanding of what foster care is. If they've got an employee working within their business, having a little bit of flexibility when they may have support needs of their child, and using any network possible to share the message around our CLAR population and foster carers. Other elements in the report touch upon getting better presence within the communities. We've worked a lot around having more staffing in our recruitment officer role, so that we can get out into our communities and we can really dispel the myths of foster care. It is a national crisis, as Dan mentioned. Even the independent sector is struggling to recruit. So although we have that angle, actually lots of people aren't coming forward to foster. There's families who don't have spare bedrooms anymore. Mothers and women are working for longer or are in full-time work where they wouldn't have done 10, 15 years ago. And actually that diminishes the pool of people that we can really work with. So it's really important for us to be able to maximise every opportunity there is in the community. So even one household could really make a difference to a child. We can't do all the great pieces of work unless they've got a stable home, and at the moment we haven't got enough of those stable homes. So I think it'd be really supportive for the service to have any opportunities brought forward to us, whether that be through councillors' wards communication, whether that be through business networks that you have, whether that be community services that we know are out there, for us to be able to talk to people about the opportunity and dispel any myths of them coming forward as a potential foster carer. It would really make an impact, even just having 1 or 2 more coming through the door.
Thank you, Amy. So going into the general fostering side, so in 2023, the service was last inspected by CIW. The inspection identified strengths and areas needed improvement. There's a detailed action plan which was reviewed regularly, and the service hasn't been re-inspected since this date. The team now benefits from a permanent manager after a number of months of having interim arrangements using agency, which has brought stability to the team since starting in January. Foster care numbers remain a challenge, as Amy has touched on. We had 63 approved foster households as of March 2025. This is a decline from 85 in 2023. 30% of our carers are aged over 60, so we have an ageing foster cohort. So there is an urgent need to recruit a new generation of carers, and looking at different ways we engage carers as well with the different schemes Amy has touched on. And to also address this, we've established a remodelling fostering board. So this kind of brings together internal and regional partners around 4 key elements, which is recruitment, retention, carer support, and improving our offer at Foster Bridgend, and making sure that we're competitive as the Eliminate policy now becomes more public facing and the public are more aware of that it's coming, and we're able to maybe look at if there's any carers looking at coming across into Bridgend from private providers. We've been really working on our carer engagement this year. We had our ICE meeting, information consultation and engagement event in March 2025, which had over 100 attendees, and we based this around remodelling fostering and had it as a hackathon, really including carers in choosing what their priorities are. So really holding us to account and setting some priorities to have another event in 6 months and really say, look, this is what we've done, this is what we haven't maybe be able to do, but this is where we're at. Informal peer support has grown, including by monthly coffee mornings and a new male carers group. And we've looked at transferring our liaison carer model over to the national pioneer carer approach. So pioneer carers, they receive training, they connect with other carers across Wales and have defined remits to lead in specific areas such as recruitment and peer mentoring. We continue to recognise our carers through events such as the Foster Care Appreciation Lunch, which we had in December. I was attended by the leader, and it was very well received. Going into the kinship and permanence team. So kinship care remains our leading alternative care provision for children in Bridgend. Over the past year, 36 connected persons assessments were completed, 23 new kinship carers were approved, creating 31 new placements. 23 special guardianship orders were granted, meaning more children have achieved legal permanence with family. And currently, as of March 31st, 2025, we had 93 kinship carers. Encouragingly, 2 of our kinship carers are now converted over to general fostering, which so they can take general foster children as well as their kinship arrangements. So it just reflects the commitment and the skills that our kinship carers have. We have kinship support groups that meet monthly and provide valued peer space. And then finishing off nationally, we've been actively contributing to the development of a Form K, which is a new kinship assessment tailored to Wales. I've supported Africa in drafting National Transfer Protocol for Special Guardians, and this work ensures carers who move between authorities receive consistent support. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Dan and Amy. Really nice to see you, Amy, in this space. Before I invite questions, I'm very conscious that we're in the age of social media now, and I've already seen the Big Welcome app and I've already seen a demonstration of it, but colleagues around the table haven't. Or so, you know, we'd talk about bringing to the table. I think it would be really useful for them to see a couple of profiles as an example. because it really does give an awful lot of information, and it's almost like a social media app. And I think that's why it's so good. But I do think we need an example. So if we could have an example sent around the committee, that would be really useful. And you also referenced the amount of children that we have presenting with more complex and challenging behaviours that need fostering. How big is that increase? So what are we looking at? Because I think that's sort of really pertinent information going forward. Thanks very much.
So currently, I believe you're looking at children who are currently in residential services where their care plan was fostering, so I think there's at any one time there's about 10 Bridgend children who are in residential provision, whether that internal or external, who could be supported by a foster carer if we had them foster carers with that skill set.
I know we actually referenced a bit around allowances, but I'm also aware that the more challenging behaviours, because people don't think, oh, actually, I can't take on a child. And I know there's a lot of misinformation around there about some of the children's behaviours that we have. Most of them are just the general, average, little Johnny or Jane. I use my name purposefully. I think it's really important to note, though, that they get additional allowances because it is a 24/7 job, 365 days a year. Yes, there might be opportunities for respite, but I think it's about ensuring that we have that information out there because people don't know that there are additional allowances and things for that. Thanks, Amy.
I think that's some of the reasoning why we're looking at that step down from residential scheme is I think it's widely known that our allowances across Wales aren't sufficient to support the child, and that's something that's being done nationally. It sits with Welsh Government currently to support local authorities in funding some of those improvements. It's in terms of meeting the skills and the experiences that some of our children have. I think we've established with recruitment that people can't not work. We're not in a position where we have stay-at-home parents or people where children move on from their home, they then don't go back into employment. So actually, if we are going to ask people to be able to work with children full-time, some of our children aren't in full-time education, then we need to look at what provision we provide to enable that to do that. We've based the scheme on a local authority that launched it about 6 to 12 months ago, where they've encouraged a couple of their foster carers to be able to leave their jobs in, for example, pupil referral units and special educational needs schools so that they can really focus their time full-time on some of these children.
Thank you very much, and it's really nice to have evidence that some of this work is going on in the background, but as a committee we wouldn't necessarily know that. I'll go to questions now. First of all, Councillor Evans, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and firstly I'm also happy to move the report. Firstly, I just want to say it's great to hear the work that is being undertaken with the schemes, campaigns and so on and so forth to recruit foster carers. It's a very meaningful work, so thank you for that. And like the DEP as well, the Chair, I would welcome to see the app because I did have a question on the app, which I'm going to retract that now until I've had the opportunity to see it. But I would like to draw your attention to page 22 and point 3.11, as it mentions the conversation from initial visit to assessment is low, and work is being carried out around these processes. Yeah. So can I ask, have you identified the reasons behind why this is so low, and what work is being carried out around the processes? So what work is carried out being around the processes? And finally, more importantly, when will the processes be completed?
So I'm going to answer it a few points.
Before you do, as well, just of note, it takes someone about 10 years to become a foster carer from initial inquiry. I think that's the first thing. We can all say, oh, that's a really good idea. And you can have a conversation with your friend with a coffee about, that's a really good idea. But from there to have that conversation, even to get some information from the service, it still takes us 10 years to convert people, approximately. Before you come in on, Amy, thank you.
Absolutely, thank you for adding that, Chair. I think it is a really long consideration process. So those initial inquiries take a lot of effort to get through the door in the first place, which is why I said in my part of the presentation, any opportunity we have to talk to the public will allow us to get us through that process of 10 years a lot quicker. And this is a sustainable recruitment plan, where it's not about getting someone through the door today, it's about consistently getting people through the door every day over the next 10, 15, however many years. A few points around the conversion from inquiries. We have improved the number of inquiries coming through the door, and we continue to do that as this year has started. It's the transition. So when that conversion rate is on average around 12% across Wales, so it's a lot lower than, the national target is 12%, but the average is 7.8. So we are on average. It is a lot lower than any of us would want it to be, but we work on average in Bridgend compared to our partners across Wales. We're finding the complexity of people coming through the assessment. So we've got a lot of people inquiring where they have the compassion and they have the want to be a foster carer, but actually the complexities of being a foster carer are harder than maybe they were 20, 30 years ago, and potentially not having the space, potentially having children at home, which adds to that added pressure. The more we talk about the commitment of fostering can sometimes make people realise actually this is a really big commitment, and that's what causes some dropouts. We have had experiences where we've lost foster carers because things have come out through the assessment which we couldn't have avoided, but we wouldn't want to approve them as foster carers once we know a little bit more about them. So that's some of the dropout. And then Dan touched upon having a stable team manager coming through the door is part of the process of change now. So we are already seeing a better conversion rate going from January, because we've got that stability of allocating the right assessors, being able to support those assessors more effectively with having a team manager in place and knowing all of our applicants and where they are and maybe exactly why they might drop out or not. So we've got a better loop of understanding why people are dropping out because of that too.
Yeah, that's lovely. Thank you very much for that explanation. And I think I agree, consistency is key, isn't it? So thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Councillor Farr, please.
Thank you, Chair. Happy to second the report. And I have to say, it's absolutely excellent report. I enjoyed reading it. And I really want to take this time to say thank you to everyone involved in this piece of work. It's a very difficult and challenging work, and I think hats off to all the staff involved in that. Easy to read, like I said, excellent report. So I've only got one little point to ask. It's on 3.12. It says that when they had the inspection, there was some improvement. Just wondering what those improvements are, Claire. I'm sure there's not a lot because you can see the work that goes into this department. We need to shout about it a lot more than what we do. So what were those improvements, please, Claire? Thank you.
I'm going to ask Dan. Apologies. I'll ask Dan to answer if that's okay, Councillor Farr, in terms of the detail. You'll know we've got a regulatory tracker in terms of any inspection recommendations, which gets monitored by the Governance and Audit Committee. So the recommendations from the fostering inspection were part of that regulatory tracker and continue to be so. But Dan, I don't know if you want to pick it up in a bit more detail.
Yeah, in terms of areas for improvement, it was around at the time. It was before my time as group manager. They were inspected, but the action plan was around safer care arrangements. I think at the time there was a culture maybe of, good intentions, but putting too much on carers, and then placements maybe becoming unsafe. So it's just really making that practice robust and ensuring that the carers can take on a child. And I think there's a number of process which were put in place before I took over in December, but it's just making sure that is embedded in the team and continued. But a lot of that reg tracker was around that, and what you find is in the regulations, if you fail one regulation, there's a number of regulations you fail off the back of that one thing. But yeah, that's what I would, but I'm happy to share the reg tracker if you want to see that up to date as well.
Great, thank you.
Just to add to what Dan has said, really, and just to take it a little bit above the details of the inspection, I think what was reflected in that inspection is the overall pressure that there is in securing the right accommodation, care and support, and ideally family setting for care experienced children. So, as Dave has already said, we're seeing a reduction which is good, steady, sustainable reduction in the number of care experienced children. But we are still struggling, and the timescales which Dan set out around the implementation of the Health and Social Care Act and the elimination of profit, puts a lot of time pressures on us to grow our in-house fostering service at a time when it's challenging to retain because of the age profile, it's challenging to recruit. So this is probably, in terms of our risk register as a directorate and a corporate risk as well, one of the main areas that we're really concerned about, and are putting in place all the mitigating actions. What that can lead to is sometimes when you're looking for a placement of a child, the match at that time wasn't quite right with the foster family. So we've got to absolutely guard against that, because if the match isn't right, we're setting up both the child and the fostering family not to succeed. And so that's a lot of the work that's gone on to address those recommendations within the CIW report.
Right. Thank you very much. You've got no more questions. The report has been moved and seconded, so I need to get my cabinet to agree with it. However, as a really bad chair, I didn't actually get everybody to agree the first report on our agenda today, so I might as well do that at the same time, please. So, agenda item number 4, overview of health services. It was moved, it was seconded. Do I have cabinet colleagues' agreement that you're all content, please?
Aye.
Lovely, thank you very much. I'm moving on to agenda item number 5, Foster Wales Bridgend update. Are you all happy and content, please, colleagues?
Aye.
Lovely, thank you very much. Dan and Amy, if you don't wish to stay, you're more than welcome to leave at this point. I think the other thanks that I think we need to say is to our foster carers themselves, not just our staff team. Our foster carers are so important to those young people. I know as a foster carer myself, old foster carer, I have to say, I wouldn't have the time, and we've talked about the time commitment to do it nowadays. They don't realise the impact that they have on those young people's lives, particularly when it's such a positive match. And I think the other thing I would say, as this is a public meeting, is please don't think that you're on your own, because even if you do decide to go down that route, there is always opportunities and so much support available to you. You just have to ask. Thanks very much, both. So we will move on now as a committee to agenda item number 6, monitoring the performance and progress of Western Bay Regional Adoption Service. We have Nicola Rogers with us today. Nicola, over to you, please.
Good morning. So I'm Nicola Rogers, the Regional Adoption Manager for Western Bay, and with me is my colleague Jodie Farley-Morris, who is the Recruitment and Assessment Manager. So you'll be aware that Welsh Government brought in the National Adoption Service in 2014, so we celebrated our 10th anniversary last year. So the Western Bay Regional Service comprises of Bridgend, Swansea and Neath. So I'll just go through some of the main highlights of the performance activity for last year. So we saw a 50% decrease in referrals to the service for twin tracking, so considering adoption as a plan for children from Bridgend. I think looking at the reasons for that in talking to Bridgend colleagues, that was most likely attributable to the stabilisation of the workforce and to the implementation of the new practice model in Bridgend. We placed 35 children across the region last year. 6 of those were Bridgend children. There was a slight increase in the timescale to place those children. Earlier in the year, we had hit the target of 6 months from placement order being granted to placement for adoption. But by the end of the year, that had risen to 9 months. And I think that was due to the complexity of children. So just as, you heard fostering talking about the complexity of children in the fostering system, we see lots of our children with complex needs, learning difficulties and neurodiverse issues. And all of that, takes time, then increases the time to place and to do the work with children to transition them to their adoption family. In saying that, just as we're seeing children coming through with more complex needs, we equally see that the adopters that we have coming through in a similar way to, fostering commented on, we see lots of our adopters who approach the service, have low-level mental health issues. There's issues with employment and with financial issues. That doesn't necessarily preclude them for adoption, but it's making sure that the time is right for them. We continue to place more children in the region than we do outside of the region, which means that we're better able to support children, lifelong until they reach adulthood. We were able to secure Welsh Government grant funding to support adoption support. Adoption support is a growing area of the service. So we've got a number of workers who support us in our adoption support work, one of those being Life Journey work. We've seen, with that worker, we've seen significant improvement in the area of Life Journey, ensuring that 97% of children who go to matching panel have a draft Life Journey book and later life letter. And our performance has improved steadily from 51% in 2018-19 to 88% at the end of last year in terms of final versions of Life Journey work being available at the point of the second adoption review. I think similarly to fostering, last year continued to be a difficult year in relation to the number of inquiries coming through from prospective adopters. So it reduced to 194 compared to 213 inquiries the previous year. That is a national situation. It's being replicated across all regions, and the work of the national marketing team alongside our own regional marketing officer continues to look at the reasons behind this and consider what we can do to try and increase the number of potential adopters coming through. And I think I'd sort of give a similar shout out really as fostering did in relation to anything that members can do to support that in terms of marketing or sharing information on social media platforms. We also work closely with fostering, attending events. I think a key issue is making sure that we're visible in the community, being able to sort of answer questions or dispel myths, out with the public is key to ensuring that adoption, is on the agenda. Despite the reduction in inquiries, there was a small increase in the number of adopters that were approved last year. So we approved 29 compared to 27 in the previous year. We also work closely with the class service in Bridgend to ensure that adopted children's therapeutic needs are met. And I think some key development work from the service is in relation to our work with birth parents. So we now have 50 birth mothers engaged in birth parent groups across the region. We also recognise that having a child placed for adoption is extremely sensitive and challenging for any birth parent. So we also do check-ins with birth parents at 12 months and 3 years post-adoption order being granted to check in with them and to see whether they're engaging in post-adoption contact and whether there's any support that we can offer. Just some other sort of headlines in relation to adoption support. As I say, we offer check-ins to birth parents. We also check in with adoptive parents 12 months and 3 years post-adoption order being granted. They're really useful check-ins to sort of get on top of any early support issues. Our early intervention approach is working in the service in terms of identifying issues, early on as we can to avoid crisis situations arising. So we have quite a good response to the check-in process. We also try and now offer birth parents the opportunity to meet with adoptive parents at the point of matching. So 29 of the 35 birth parents whose children were placed last year were offered meetings. 21 parents attended meetings. Where we see parents attend meetings like that, we see that post-adoption contact is far more beneficial and that relationship builds from an early point. Lastly, we offer young young people across the region to attend a youth club that we offer to our adopted children. So currently we have about 18 children who are sort of booked into youth club, with 15 regularly attended, and that would be children from Swansea, Bridgend and Neath. So we have a central point where they meet. We also try and obtain funding for them to do sort of activities that they wouldn't otherwise be able to do. And some members of the youth group applied for a grant, which they were successful in achieving, and they actually ran an Easter event for our younger children in the Easter holidays, which was very successful. I think one of the biggest challenges that we're facing at the moment is the modernisation of post-adoption contact. It's a real sort of driving force for Welsh Government. I did bring a video, so I'm not sure whether if we've been able to. I think the link was sent. No.
There we are. We have Mike.
Oh,
there we are. We'll try it now.
So post-adoption support is sort of a key feature. Particularly, we're seeing an emerging need for lots of siblings that weren't able to be placed together from the early point. We see lots of referrals come in for those siblings wanting to re-engage in contact where that wasn't possible. We're changing the approach now, so where we have siblings that can't be placed together, in those circumstances we're trying to ensure that contact doesn't sort of cease at the point of placement of adoption, and that those siblings can maintain a level of direct contact. So the example that we've got today, so Logan was adopted when he was 2 years old. His older brother at that time was 4, and the brother's care plan was SGO to grandmother. So for many years, the boys only had letterbox contact, so an annual letter each year. So the adopters, quite remarkable really in their approach, that they could see that sibling contact was really important for Logan, and that he had questions that he continued to ask about his brother. So with some work through our post-adoption contact team, we progressed from letterbox contact through to initial meetings with the adopters and grandmother, and then adopters and the brother, and then we now have very sort of flexible contact between the two families. The video just sort of gives some of their views and the importance to them of why sibling contact was so important.
Okay, thanks very much, Nicola. Mike, can you play the video, please?
Yeah, no, again, that was quite positive. And I remember Logan sort of saying afterwards, Logan's got some coordination issues, and I think that and lots of other things they found that were quite similar. And so even though they've been brought up totally separately and differently, they could relate to each other, which was really nice as well, I think. And of course Liam's quite a big, chunky lad, and he looks like he could do everything, but like Logan on the climbing frame thing, he didn't want to go up high either, because he didn't, like Logan, he felt his coordination wasn't good enough. So that, I think that was really good for Logan, wasn't it? So.
And it was good they liked the same things, playing football, playing sport, a bit of rough and tumble. It'd probably been a little bit more difficult if they didn't like that similar thing. And they just got on, like say, they were two strangers, but they were brothers just getting on playing like I would have done with my brother back in the day, just get the ball out and play some sport. I would say it's helped a lot. When we adopted Logan, we had a letter given to us that was for Logan when he was 18, and it was very stark. It was horrible to read about his birth parents, and I would still be unhappy about giving that letter to Logan now, because it's just a horrible letter to give to someone. But now he's got some background on his parents, from his brother, from his grandmother. We have some more background, so the letter has a lot more context in it, because that letter is just a horrible thing to give in someone.
and also, like, we're obviously older parents, and you know, it gives Logan someone like a contact that's sort of real and family, and that, you know, even if they don't stay in contact, you know, on a regular basis, he's got someone there if we're not there in the end, that actually sort of has that family bond with them. So and I say they're so alike in a lot of ways. That's reassuring, I think, isn't
Yes,
it?
it's
So,
very reassuring. Yeah. I would ask for face-to-face contact be put into every plan. Letter contact is so bland, it's so black and white, it's awful just sitting there on a page written what you've done in a year. And yeah, it's nice, but it's nothing like this. You know, however bleak the situation is at the start, where you think there is never going to be any contact between family and the child again. Always have it in your mind that things turn around. People's lives, they turn their lives around. We need to allow people time to do that. You know, at a time when children are moved, it's the end of the world for them, and we will understand that. But things change, people change their lifestyles, and they need to have that chance to be able to meet their children again.
Logan, can you remember the first time that you met your brother?
Yeah.
How were you feeling?
I was feeling nervous and also happy to see him.
So what was it like when you actually got to see him in the flesh, face to face, and not on a photograph like you have in the past?
He was very tall.
What did you enjoy most about the contact and seeing him?
I enjoyed playing catch with him and having a kick around with the football.
Yeah. Did you notice that you had anything in common between the two of you?
Yeah. They're both quite scared of heights.
Any similarities in the way you... So I remember you were comparing different body parts and you were very similar and...
Yeah, we both had like the same hand shapes or something.
What did you feel at the end of the contact? What were your thoughts when you were driving back home with Mum and Dad?
I couldn't wait to see him again.
Can you remember meeting Gran for the first time?
Yeah, she was very nice.
Yeah. What were you feeling then? Were you still very nervous, or...?
I wasn't that nervous for some reason. But
was it because you maybe seen Liam before?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what did you think of Gran? Was there anything that struck you? Did she look like you, or Liam, or anything like that?
Well, she gave me like lots of money.
I remember she gave you a big hug as well. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Yeah, she gave you no choice with that hug, did she?
No.
What did that feel like when she did give you a hug?
It felt nice.
Yeah, and when Liam did the same?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what would you say to a social worker or to anybody working with children who have been adopted and aren't placed with their siblings? What would you say to them about contact? Is there anything you'd like to say?
I would just tell them to just meet them and just kind of hope it goes well.
Well, what are you thinking about the future now with you and Liam?
I want to just have a good time with him when I'm older. Maybe like go somewhere and do a lot of things with him.
Okay. So are you glad that it's happened?
Yeah.
What's been the best bit so far?
Just going to the park with him and stuff.
I notice you're wearing a necklace, Logan.
Yeah.
Is there a reason for that?
Because I saw my brother had a lot of jewellery on, so I wanted to try be like him and change my hair to be like his.
Did wonder, because I know you both liked each other's hair, didn't you, when you were talking about hair last time I came with you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So is it nice to have somebody to look up to?
Yeah.
Like a big brother figure?
Yeah.
Yeah. So is there anything else you'd like to say about contact?
Yeah, so if you have an opportunity to have contact with one of your siblings, I suggest you do it.
Are you glad that Mum and Dad looked into it for you?
Yeah, I'm very glad that they did.
Video says it all, Nicola, doesn't it?
It certainly does. And I think it just illustrates really, the boys look really alike, even though they've had that sort of 10-year period of not having any contact, they've got similarities. So I think the focus of our work really, we've got national contact risk assessment and tool documents that we're using. So we're spreading the word really amongst the social work teams as far as we can. We're supporting those contact discussions early on in the twin tracking process. So it's, you know, the hope really is that we won't in later years see all the referrals that we currently see to try and re-establish contact, because it would never have stopped in the first place, particularly between siblings.
I think what was most noticeable for me, and I'll do the inverted commas bit, was he was so normal, it was like pulling teeth out of a teenager, getting them to speak and using more than one word answers. So I'm going to go over to my colleagues, please. Do any of them have any questions, please? Councillor Davis.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and happy to move the report. Thank you for the report. It's only a quick question. The Deputy Leader and Chair mentioned earlier that it takes 10 years to become a foster parent. Is there a timescale of adoption, or is it a different process altogether? It's not a world I'm that familiar with, you know. Can you give us just a bit of a background on that? You know, we've already heard stories of people trying to become, you know, adoptive parents and the struggles they have, and, you know, that sort of timescale. Thank you.
I think that if adopters come through and they're at the start of the process, in terms of actual assessment, it takes around 6 months from the point of coming into the service to the point of being approved as an adopter. However, what we do know is that it is years that people may be considering whether to adopt or not. So the marketing in adoption is really difficult, because you don't tend to put something out, someone sees it and they come straight through the door. You know, it's years between that first point of contact, or when they first start thinking about adoption, to when they actually make, you know, that approach. So the assessment process is fairly swift and timely these days, but in terms of people going through the process of deciding whether they wish to adopt, that takes a longer period of time.
Yeah, obviously it's a more permanent thing, isn't it, an adoption rather than a foster, but there's a huge disparity there, mine, between 10 years and I think 6 to 8.
No, so it's not 10 years for the process, Councillor Davis, it's 10 years from actually thinking about it. Right. So as soon as you, as a member of the public, think about it, you might have a conversation in coffee, you might see one of the stalls, you might have an initial interest and think, oh, I'll go and have a conversation with the family, because it's not just you that it impacts on the whole family and the wider family. And I think that's important to know. It's one of the longest jobs, you know, we always say being elected, it's one of the longest job interviews that you'll ever have. Actually, being a fosterer, that's one of the longest job applications you'll be doing ever.
Thank you, Chair.
I think the other thing to say about adoption is that, you know, people follow their own fertility journeys, etc., etc. So, you know, adoption may be on their radar, but it may be years until they completely finish their you know, own investigations or medical investigations. So it's slightly different from fostering in that perspective.
Thank you very much. Councillor Kaparis, please.
Thank you, Chair. Happy to second the report. I note that whilst the times in the report show that the average placement time is above 6 months, that it is explained in the performance summary in the quality of service review, showing the most are actually at 5 months, so well done on that. That's really good. But I notice only 5 approved adopters coming through in Bridgend in 24-25 out of the 29 in the wider region. And as you said earlier, we had 194 prospective adopters contact us. Is that the sort of normal conversion rate you would see on people coming through? And can you tell us what sort of things are either putting people off or disqualifying them? And, you know, what is the main reason for that? You know, about 15% conversion rate.
Hi, yes, so I'm Jodie Farley-Morris. I'm the Recruitment and Assessment Team Manager in Western Bay. To sort of answer your question, they are fairly typical figures in terms of the number of approvals that we see coming through Bridgend. I think it was last year, the year before last, so 2023 to 24, we had 8 approved adopters from the Bridgend area. So we have seen a slight decline in the approved adopters from Bridgend of this year. But we have had a good uptake in the first quarter for this year, which is good and promising from the Bridgend area. So we just need to keep momentum up, really. In terms of the sort of dropout rate, as you mentioned, yes, there are a number of reasons why people inquire and then don't proceed to assessment or drop out of the assessment process, very similar to our fostering colleagues. So they could be reasons such as financial difficulties. It could be that they're moving home. It could be that they don't have the spare bedroom. It could be that there are changes of employment. There's sort of usually medical issues are the biggest thing that we sort of tend to come up against time and time again. But, you know, we do tend to support a lot of those inquiries through to stage 1 of the assessment process before we then have further conversations as to whether that application is appropriate to proceed to stage 2 of the assessment process. So we're really keen to, as I say, keep momentum up and make sure that the inquiries that are coming through are of good quality to support those who then wish to adopt to be successful in their approval and beyond then to support the children that we're seeing coming through.
Thanks, Jodie. Almost went to use my laptop instead of the desk in front of me. That wouldn't have been a good shout. Councillor Farr, please.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just say again, excellent report. I really enjoyed reading it. So much information, and the review papers are really good as well. Just, I like the way you've done the action plan. Can I just make a suggestion? Instead of having the word ongoing, could we have specific date in there, please? Because I'm sure you review this annually. So if you could have a date in there rather than saying ongoing, because ongoing doesn't mean, I don't know what that means. That's one. The other thing, the youth club. Is the youth club just for the children who are adopted, or is it open to everybody? Thank you, Chair.
The youth club is just for adopted young people. We find that lots of our adopted young people really struggle to engage in other community activities. Lots of them struggle to attend school on a full-time basis. So we found that by bringing them to youth club, where they're with peers that have a similar background, similar difficulties, has really helped them socialise and start that journey. And from there, lots of our youth club children have now gone on to join other community activities such as cadets. And so it gives them the confidence, really, because that's something that they've not had to go to mainstream activities. So the aim is to get them to reach our harder young people, engage them, and then hopefully move them on to mainstream activities.
Thank you very much. Councillor Farr hasn't turned her mic off, so I'm assuming that she doesn't want to come back to you. I think the one thing I would say is I'm very conscious that I know of the support once the adoption is finalised, and I'm very aware of some families in Bridgend that have used that service. We know that a lot of these children have already suffered an enormous amount of trauma and ill health, and we also know that there is support available to them should they wish to access it, and I know it's of enormous benefit to them, and I think that's worth taking back to the team. Thank you very much. I concur with Councillor Farr. I enjoyed reading this report, and I know I've seen it a couple of times now, but I do enjoy reading it, and it's nice to see that our children have the best opportunities available to them. Thank you. Right, before we go, right, the report has been moved and seconded. Are all my cabinet colleagues in agreement?
Aye.
Lovely. Lovely. Thank you very much. Nicola and Jodie, thank you for attending today. Please don't feel free, you don't have to stay. Please feel free to leave as you wish. Thank you very much. For other colleagues on the call, we would have been due a break in 5 minutes. I don't want to start a new report. In the meantime, Councillor Farr, Appreciate that means you'll be disappearing now, and that's fine. But we're going to take 10 minutes now. So if I can have you all back, please, at 11:36. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Chair.